The sun shone brightly as a small ginger cockapoo named Biscuit trotted through the tall grass. His brown nose twitched with excitement as he dashed after a butterfly, its wings like stained glass in the sunlight. Suddenly, Biscuit stopped. He tilted his head, sniffing the air. The scent of wet paint and canvas drifted through the tall grass, pulling him closer. There, under the shade of a large oak tree, Biscuit's friends were setting up paints, brushes, and big sheets of paper on an old blanket. One friend mixed blue and white paint together, while another dipped a paintbrush in a cup of water. A third friend laid down a big sheet of paper on the ground and held a stick out like a paintbrush. "What are you doing?" Biscuit asked, trotting closer. He wiggled his fluffy tail from side to side, his big eyes sparkling with curiosity. "We're going to paint pictures," said one of Biscuit's friends. "Want to help us?" Biscuit wanted to do anything his friends were doing. He wiggled closer to get a better look at the paints. The paints were so pretty. They shimmered and sparkled just like dewdrops. And this blue was so bright, it reminded him of the clear summer sky or a playful splash in a puddle. He couldn't resist dipping his entire fluffy tail inside. "Careful," said one of Biscuit's friends. "It's wet paint." But before she could stop him, plop! Biscuit's tail hit the paper, leaving a big wet blue mark. He pulled his tail away and looked at it with surprise. It was covered in bright blue paint. He wagged his tail happily, feeling proud of his first piece of art. One of Biscuit's friends started to laugh. "You painted a blue streak across the paper, Biscuit. That's silly." Biscuit wagged his tail faster. He wanted to make more art. He didn't know how, but his tail kept dipping into the paint, and splat! A giant blue paw print landed on the paper. Startled, Biscuit jumped forward, then skidded to a stop. He looked down at his paws. They were covered in blue paint. Now there were blue marks all over the grass, on the blanket, and even inside the picnic basket. Biscuit's friends burst out laughing. They had never seen a puppy who liked to paint so much. "You're the silliest artist I've ever seen, Biscuit," said one of his friends, wiping tears from her eyes. And as they continued painting, Biscuit kept wagging his tail and making art. He loved how his paws could dip into the paint and leave marks wherever he stepped. First, he dipped his paws into yellow paint and made a masterpiece on the fence. Then he dipped his paws into red paint and made a beautiful design on the tree. Next, he dipped his paws into purple paint and made a picture on the bird bath. Then Biscuit saw a little bird sitting on the edge of the bird bath. The bird was scared because Biscuit had made such a mess. "Don't be scared, little bird," said Biscuit. "Let me make a beautiful picture for you." Biscuit dipped his paws into green paint and carefully made wings for the little bird. The bird wasn't scared anymore. In fact, he thought his new green wings were very pretty. He hopped off the bird bath and flew away. Then Biscuit saw a squirrel with a bushy tail just like him. Biscuit wanted to make something special for his friend. He dipped his tail into orange paint and made a stripe right down the middle of his friend's nose. The squirrel was startled at first, but then he realized how handsome he looked with the bright yellow stripe on his nose. He scampered up the tree and chattered happily. Then Biscuit saw a little rabbit hopping by. She had long, floppy ears that flopped when she hopped. Biscuit dipped his paws into pink paint and made spots on her ears. The rabbit stopped hopping and looked at her reflection in a puddle. She thought her new pink spots were very pretty. She twitched her nose and hopped away. But soon the paint was all used up and Biscuit still wanted to make art. He looked around for something else to dip his paws in, and then he saw a puddle. The puddle was full of rainwater, and it looked just like a big sheet of white paint. So Biscuit dipped his paws in and made a beautiful design on the ground. He dipped his paws in again and made a pretty picture on the tree. And then he dipped his paws in one more time and made a masterpiece on the old oak tree. But all the art made Biscuit very tired. He wanted to take a break and relax. He looked around for somewhere to lay down, and then he saw the big sheet of paper, where he made his first piece of art. He walked over and flopped down right in the middle of it. He closed his eyes and started to dream. Suddenly, pop! Biscuit rolled onto his side and scratched his back on the paper. He opened his eyes and looked at his paws. They were covered in rainbow paint. He wiggled his tail and scratched his back again. Pop, pop, pop! Pop, he scratched his back over, and each time he left a giant rainbow puppy print on the paper. When he finished, he popped up and looked at his work. He had made a giant rainbow puppy print that looked just like him. He barked happily and wagged his tail. This was his best art yet. Then Biscuit looked at all the art he had made. There were paw prints, splashes, and giggles everywhere. He was covered in colorful splashes from nose to tail. And although he had made a huge mess, he was the happiest puppy in the world. When his friends saw all the art Biscuit had made, they started to giggle. They had never seen a puppy who liked to paint so much. "You are a very messy pup, Biscuit," said one of them, "but you're also the most creative one." And as the sun set and the fireflies blinked their lights, Biscuit flopped down happily, leaving one last paw print right in the middle of the paper, his perfect finishing touch.